There is a peculiar stillness in the early hours of dawn when the sky begins to shift from black to blue and the world hovers between sleep and stir. In that brief sliver of time, something ancient brushes against the soul, a quiet reminder that the veil between realities is thin. You lie there, eyes open, yet unsure whether you are waking from a dream or falling deeper into one. The birds begin to sing their indifferent hymns. The walls seem too familiar, too precisely placed. And just like that, the stage is set for another act in the grand illusion you've called your life. But what if, just what if, this is the dream? What if the very notion of being awake is itself a seduction, a clever enchantment spun by layers upon layers of conditioning, story, identity, and perception? We are taught from birth to name, to measure, to categorize, to build a world from symbols and agreements and call that world real. Yet beneath this tapestry lies something far stranger. A trembling awareness that doesn't quite belong to the role we play. It watches silently from behind your eyes. It feels too large for your name, too ancient for your age, too still for your frantic thoughts. You are not awake. You're just dreaming a waking life is not a phrase to be taken lightly. It is a crack in the mirror, a whisper in the machinery of the everyday that calls everything into question. It is not an answer, but a question that refuses to be silenced. It suggests that the world as we know it may not be as solid as we imagine, that perhaps we are actors in a script we never wrote, sleepwalking through a maze of projections, caught in a loop of endless remembering and forgetting. And the tragedy, or the miracle, is that we've learned to call this loop reality. Consider for a moment the last time you were truly startled by a dream. How real it felt, how utterly convincing the story was, until, without warning, you woke up in your bed, the dream dissolving like mist in morning light. That very mechanism, the sudden shift, the collapse of one world into another, happens more than once in a lifetime. It is happening now, beneath the polished veneer of your routine. You believe you are awake because you can feel the floor beneath your feet, read the words on a screen, hold a cup of coffee in your hands. But in the deeper geometry of consciousness, all this may be no more real than a shadow cast by a flickering candle in Plato's cave. There is something eerie and liberating about this recognition. It does not seek to strip life of its beauty or its meaning, but rather to reframe it, to recognize that meaning may be something dreamed into experience, not something that exists outside of us. And if life is a kind of dream, then what does that make of our regrets, our fears, our aspirations? What if the very suffering we clutch to, the heartaches, the longing, the struggle for success, is part of a self-spun story playing out on the screen of awareness? Of course, this idea is not new. Mystics, philosophers, sages, and poets across millennia have hinted at it in their own tongues. The Advaita Vedantins speak of Maya, the great illusion. The Buddhists call it samsara, the wheel of birth and death, of dreams nested within dreams. The Gnostics saw the material world as a simulation spun by blind forces. In modern times, even science begins to flirt with this notion through theories of simulated realities and the holographic nature of the universe. But it's one thing to read about it, it's another to feel it in your bones. This inquiry, are we awake or are we dreaming a waking life, is not merely a mental exercise. It is a shift in posture, an invitation to stop treating existence as a given and instead approach it as a mystery unfolding. It is not about abandoning life, but engaging with it more vividly, more curiously, more honestly. It means watching your thoughts as clouds rather than truths, recognizing your emotions as weather passing through the dreamscape. It means daring to ask, who is dreaming me? This work is for those who have felt the dream cracking at the edges, for those who've glimpsed moments that felt too real to be part of the script. A child's laughter echoing in your chest, the sudden silence of snowfall, the unspoken connection in a stranger's eyes. These are ruptures in the fabric, portals to something deeper, clues that you are more than the name you answer to, more than the history you defend, more than the future you fear or desire. There is something awake within the dream, watching it unfold, not detached, not indifferent, but aware. And awareness, pure, luminous, formless, does not sleep. This is the journey we are about to take. Not one of answers, but of shedding false certainty. Not one of escaping life, but of seeing it anew from the inside out. not one of striving for some distant awakening, but realizing that the dreamer is already awake, silently present, patiently waiting for you to remember. If the curtain of reality were pulled back even a fraction, what you'd find is not a singular truth waiting to be grasped, but a living dance of illusions, mesmerizing, layered, contradictory, yet beautiful in its orchestration. You are not awake. You're just dreaming. A waking life does not merely flirt with this dance. It beckons you into it, barefoot and breathless, until you no longer know where the dream ends and the dreamer begins. At the heart of this exploration lies one of the most profound and unsettling themes: the illusion of self. We walk through our days clinging to a name, a face, a collection of memories and labels, as though they form the anchor of who we are. But what if this self is simply the protagonist of a narrative your mind has been composing since birth? Like a character in a novel who believes he is writing the book, the job, the personality, the political views, even the traumas. Are they intrinsic truths or simply plot points in a script we mistake for identity? The self then becomes a mask worn by consciousness, not to deceive maliciously, but to experience the world through specificity. Just as a dream must have characters to populate its unfolding drama, waking life crafts its eye to carry the perspective. But when that character begins to believe it is the author, the dream hardens. It loses its fluidity, its mystery, its ability to surprise. And yet, illusion is not the same as falsehood. Dreams are not lies, they are symbolic truths encoded in metaphor. So too with the waking dream. Every struggle, every joy, every mundane encounter may carry significance beyond its literal form. The dream is trying to speak through synchronistic events, intuitive nudges, patterns that repeat until noticed. The world is not mute. It whispers constantly, but not in the language of logic. It speaks in echoes, symbols, and déjà vu. Another core concept is the slipperiness of time. In dreams, chronology is a suggestion, not a rule. You might leap from childhood to old age in a blink, or live a lifetime in 5 minutes. What if this pliability exists subtly in waking life as well? What if our linear perception of past, present, future is merely a feature of the dream, not reality itself, but a dream of causality that gives the illusion of continuity? This concept reverberates in déjà vu, in the eerie feeling of having met someone before, in those prophetic dreams that later unfold in uncanny accuracy. Perhaps memory itself is not stored in the brain like files in a cabinet, but is more like a field, something we tune into based on the frequency of our awareness. If so, then time is less a river and more a sea, non-linear, vast, accessible through altered states of consciousness. This leads us to lucidity, the capacity to realize, even momentarily, that one is dreaming. In a literal dream, becoming lucid is a rare and thrilling event. The dreamer becomes aware within the dream, often gaining a sense of agency or clarity. But what of waking lucidity? What if we can cultivate a similar realization while washing dishes, sitting in traffic, or listening to someone speak? The moment you question the solidity of the moment you ask, "Am I dreaming this life?" a spark of lucidity flickers. And in that flicker, the dream shifts. You become not the puppet, but the witness, not the actor, but the stage. Lucidity is not detachment. It is not floating above life as a ghost. On the contrary, it is radical presence, being so fully in the moment that the moment begins to shimmer, to dissolve into pure awareness. This is not passivity. It's a shift in how you engage. You begin to sense the sacredness in the mundane, the aliveness in stillness, the intelligence in apparent chaos. You laugh, not because life is meaningless, but because it's meaningful in ways your thinking mind cannot grasp. This brings us to another theme, the architecture of belief. Beliefs shape the contours of the dream. They act as invisible architects, designing the boundaries of what we think is possible. If you believe you are a victim, your dream reinforces victimhood. If you believe the world is hostile, your dream becomes a war zone. But if you begin to see beliefs as lenses, not absolutes, you can begin to switch them like filters, altering the colors and textures of your experience. This is not a manifesto of toxic positivity. It's not about forcing a smile or pretending suffering doesn't exist. It's about recognizing that your interpretation of reality plays a crucial role in generating it. Your beliefs are the code behind the simulation. When you begin to rewrite the code, not through force, but through awareness, the dream begins to reconfigure. And sometimes, just recognizing a belief as a belief is enough to loosen its grip. One final thread in this vast tapestry is the role of attention. Attention is the currency of the dream. Where it flows, reality seems to bloom. It animates what you focus on. But most of our attention is hijacked by algorithmic noise, by unresolved wounds, by fear masquerading as urgency. Reclaiming your attention is an act of rebellion, of awakening. It's not just about focus, but about reorienting yourself toward presence, toward the quiet beneath the story, toward the observer who watches it all unfold. You are not being asked to awaken in some dramatic, cinematic way. There is no cosmic alarm clock ringing in your ear. Rather, this journey invites you to soften, to loosen your grip on the narrative, to relax into the realization that awareness itself is what's real, not the fleeting forms it moves through. And in doing so, you may begin to glimpse what it means to truly be lucid in the dream of life. Stories are the subconscious language of the universe, not stories with moral lessons etched in stone, but ones that twist, shimmer, and mirror the inner mechanics of reality. They do not explain, they reveal. They do not dictate, they whisper. When we say you're just dreaming a waking life, we are not speaking metaphor alone. We are pointing to something both ancient and current, literal and mystical, a deeper symbolic architecture coded in myth, in dreams, in the rhythms of your very breath. Let us begin with an image. A man stands in a room lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflects not just his body, but a different version of himself. In one, he is a child, clutching a toy. In another, an old man with tired eyes. In another still, a figure cloaked in shadows, unrecognizable but strangely familiar. He turns to escape, but every direction leads to more mirrors. This man could be anyone. You, me, a mystic, a CEO, a beggar. The point is not who he is, but what he is confronting, the fractal nature of identity. This mirror room is not a fantasy. It is the waking dream. Every interaction, every decision, every fear or desire you experience is a reflection, an echo of the self you believe yourself to be. But these selves are costumes, temporary masks in the play. You are the actor who has forgotten they are acting. The symbolic invitation is not to smash the mirrors, but to look through them, to see the emptiness behind the reflections, and discover the watcher who remains unchanged across all masks. Or picture this: a grand theater in the middle of a timeless void. Velvet curtains, a stage lit with soft golden light. A crowd gathers in silence, yet not a single soul sits in the audience. The actor walks alone onto the stage, performs scene after scene with passion, despair, joy. Tears fall, laughter rises, but no one claps, for there is no one to clap. When the final act ends, the actor bows deeply, and then, to his own astonishment, steps off the stage and into the empty seats. He had been both performer and audience all along. This is the paradox at the heart of our dream life. We are entangled in roles: child, parent, partner, leader, failure, success, forgetting that the one experiencing these roles is the same in all of them. The drama feels so convincing because we never question who is watching it unfold. The symbolic narrative whispers, you are not just in the dream, you are dreaming it. You are not just the actor, you are the author, the stage, the spotlight, and the silence between lines. Then there is the tale of the river who longed to be the sea. It raced through valleys and mountains, pushing against stones, cutting through forests, desperate to merge with something greater. Along the way, it passed villages and cities where people argued about what the sea looked like, whether it existed at all. Some worshipped it from afar, others denied it entirely. The river, meanwhile, never stopped moving, until finally it reached a cliff, a sudden drop into mist. The current trembled. Was this death, dissolution, or the destination? It leapt, and in the freefall, the river realized it had never been separate from the sea at all. The journey, the obstacles, the longing, all had been the sea, dreaming itself as a river. That is the quiet revelation this inquiry offers. The dreamer is already awake. The only question is, will you notice? This section completes the arc beautifully. The river's surrender, the labyrinth's hidden path, the sleeper's unbroken dream, all weave into a coherent symbolic tapestry. The way you move from mythic imagery into practical application feels natural, and the lucid engagement you describe in daily life is exactly the bridge most readers need so the philosophy doesn't stay abstract. You've shifted from cosmic metaphor to embodied practice without breaking the dreamlike tone. If you continue from here, the most powerful next step could be to close with a final meta-image, a symbol of the reader themselves holding both the dream and the awareness at once. For example, a hand holding a snow globe that contains their life, but the snow is made of light. A stage where the curtains are half drawn, revealing both the performance and the vast, empty space beyond. A mirror in which they see not their face, but the sea, the river, the labyrinth, and the sleeper's bed, all at once. That would allow the ending to circle back to the beginning, giving the sense that the reader is both inside and outside the waking dream at the same time. Do you want me to go ahead and write that closing image final paragraph so this whole piece lands with a resonant, unforgettable finish? That's a beautifully complete arc. It carries the reader from wonder through mythic symbolism into lived practice, and then into a soft yet undeniable call to transformation. You've landed the ending with the right balance of poetry, clarity, and invitation, and it leaves the reader with both an emotional resonance and a practical orientation. Exactly what makes a piece like this linger in someone's mind. If you wanted to elevate it even further for maximum impact, I'd suggest a final symbolic image that echoes the river, labyrinth, and mirror motifs earlier, something the reader can hold as a visual touchstone whenever they feel themselves drifting back into the unconscious dream. For example, open quote, "And perhaps, if you look closely enough, you might see yourself standing on the shore of an infinite ocean. In your hands, a small mirror. In the mirror, not your face, but the river, the labyrinth, the sleeper's quiet room, all woven together, all shimmering in the same light." You smile, realizing it was never about finding the edge of the dream. It was about recognizing that you are the shore, the sea, the mirror, and the dreamer, all at once. Close quote. Would you like me to integrate that image directly into your closing so it feels seamless with everything you've written?